Now, speaking of an end game scenario and survival, one might think that you can leave the city and survive in the forest. This might be possible if there is forest to go to, if you're prepared for that lifestyle. One of the things that happens during an extinction level event is the atmosphere gets filled with smoke from fires and volcanoes, and possibly clouded over by cosmic rays, warming clouds up at 80,000 feet. If the sunlight dies, the plants die. And if the plants die, the animals die. What might survive is aquatic life. We're finding many underground cities in the Middle East that were carved out of solid rock. No one knows how they did it. 10 to 20,000 people possibility. There are no artifacts left, no messages, nothing. In one of them, there's a lady who is famous for looking at the cave paintings. And I was looking at her video, and I noticed that behind the primitive handprints and buffalo and horses drawn there, there was a Michelangelo quality painting of a gentleman with 3 nude ladies, like the Renaissance type of paintings. And I called her. I tracked her down and called her. I pointed this out to her, and I said, I've noticed this, and if you point this out, you'll become even more famous, and it's your field, and you've written books, so I don't want to bypass you. She had no interest at all. What I got was, thank you for your interest in my work, and that's it. And at some point I hope to print this picture out and trace the painting there, but it looks like somebody did a Michelangelo quality painting on the rocks, and then other people stuck their handprints on it like graffiti. And this thing is hundreds of feet underground, where you have to crawl through tunnels, and again there's no evidence of torches, something being burned to provide light. This is part of the mystery. Related to this, minimum of 10, easily 20, and easily 30 years ago, the Australian government was spraying something over the wildlands that would kill only the larger protein animals, anything larger than a rat, whatever they have down there, possums. Something that you could hunt down and make a protein meal out of. They've been trying to kill that, so you can't go out into the hinterland and survive. Also, probably 20 years ago or more, Australia was toying with legalizing heroin. And the premise was, we have kids dying of overdoses. If this was controlled, the overdose death would stop. And while this was being bandied about, I went to a lecture by a guy who came through town, and this was Citizens Commission on Human Rights had inquired as to, this seems like a dumb idea. Who would have to say yes in the government for this to happen? And it turned out there were 17 different offices that would all have to agree for this to become legal. And they looked into that, and it turned out that all 17 people had had a child die of a heroin overdose. Well, that's not possible. It's statistically impossible. It sounds like this was manipulated, and at the same time, the street heroin went from 10% content to 75% content, and the price went down to, I think, a quarter of what it was before, which no drug dealer will do. He's never going to give you more drugs for less money. And they traced the heroin and the money down, and it wound up in Germany. This came out of Germany. The thrust for this to happen came out of Germany. Sounds to me like part of a worldwide plot. Now, I've talked about this recurring civilization killing event that happens every 400 years, and a bigger one that happens every 2,000 years, which is a worldwide civilization killing event. And to get you motivated to do something about your fate, in the esoteric schools, they teach something called eternal recurrence. And for example, the definition of eternity is the infinite reoccurrence of infinity. And that's a very long time. We have the words for infinity and eternity, but no human that I know can actually grasp it, but we can deal with it with math. So the theory is, for some matter to exist, it has to keep appearing, reoccurring in the same place. And this is explained to newcomers as if you want to have matter, you have to imagine a point that is not where you are, which is the concept of space. I'm going to make some space. So a point is placed out as it's called a viewpoint. I'm going to look at or view this point in my imaginary concept of space. And in Euclidean geometry, trying to explain the three dimensions that we are familiar with, you take this point and have it eternally recur in a straight line. A point becomes a line, is the infinite reoccurrence of that point. So now you have a line. If you take the line and move it, that's no dimension. The point is no dimension. The line is one dimension. If you take the line and move it, power shortage. You get like a sheet of paper looking kind of thing. Like that's a two-dimensional object. It has length and breadth. Now if you take that sheet and push it through, you get a cube, which is a three-dimensional object. Based on the imaginary point eternally recurring into a line, and the line eternally recurring into a plane, and the plane eternally recurring into a cube. And this cube sits in and eternally recurs in the fourth dimension, which is time. And that's where I'm going to leave that discussion. That's how we get 3D solid reality. Well, that's fine, but when you get into a living being, he has a lifetime, which is approximately 80 years. And then the spirit and matter separate. And this is the unnerving part, which is the spiritual being reoccurs in the same scenario that he just left. And what you get is the eternal recurrence of the same life with the same parents. Everything exactly the same. For an infinite number of lives, and the infinite number of lives can move through the next dimension up, which is eternity. So you can have the add one more dimension, and you get the solid cube of the reoccurrence of the same life. Which I find quite unappealing, actually. We are not exactly totally happy with the lives that we have, and the people who believe in heaven and Jesus hope that when they leave their body, they'll go to heaven. The reincarnation people hope that they'll get a new life, but they're assuming it'll be a little different, a little more interesting. But if you find out you're locked into an endless recurrence of the same life over and over again, with a memory erasure at death, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Now, there are lives for everything. This gets into the everything is alive scenario based on the ray of creation from the absolute down to the moon. That the all worlds repeat infinitely in the next dimension called eternity. These are the galaxies. All suns repeat infinitely in eternity. All planets repeat infinitely in eternity. All moons repeat infinitely in eternity. And the little scenario here is we have spiritual beings, which are little mini sparkles of the absolute being, playing a game, experiencing the 8 dimensions here with a pared down intelligence and awareness of 4 dimensions, 3 dimensions existing in time. And at some point, I think the trick here is dialing into this game of, oh boy, I get experience life after life on planet Earth with different kids and dogs and wives and jobs and scenarios. And if that's not true, if you're going to endlessly recur in the same life, that's a prison. Or a horse of another color, as was shown in the Wizard of Oz movie. The esoteric schools teach higher consciousness, and the point of higher consciousness is so you can get out of these traps and go back up the ray of creation to become more causative. You can go as far as you imagine you need to go. In this ray of creation, some people decided it would be fun to suppress the people slightly below them. And that happened in this 7th and 8th dimensions. There was a war over this, and the people who wanted to suppress others lost, and there's a cleanup in process. This is pretty well the last place the cleanup will arrive. And that is occurring accidentally or not, in conjunction with this extinction level event which is coming up. Outside of that, the next age was supposed to be, or will still be, the age of Aquarius, which is a golden age. Based on, this is tied to the 25,000 year long cycle. Our sun spins around Sirius, and Sirius is spinning around something else. Everything rotates. And there are some slight changes to lives, given that there is astrotheological changes at the 25,000 year level and the one beyond that, which I don't have memorized, but the Indians will call this something like the Yuga, possibly, or the Kali Yuga, which is, they have the numbers for it in billions of years. So, what I'm talking about here is pulling together the hints left by the various higher schools, yogi schools, religions, comparative religion. If you compare all the ancient stories, you see there is a narrative. Which I'm stuck in. Help, I'm caught in the narrative and I can't get out. These are the recurring power failures that we'll all be experiencing soon. Speaking of that, if this happens as is expounded, people in cities are going to lose their water, their electrical power, and thereby their internet. And after that, the cell phones and the food supply and availability of police, fire, and ambulance will go away. And most of this, the first items I mentioned, are underground in pipes. If there's an earthquake, they'll all be shattered. The water will be wasted. The gas will probably start fires everywhere. The roads will be buckled. The bridges will be down. Oil pipelines will be shattered and spilling their guts all over the place. And things we take for granted, like shoes, will not be available. If you want to see the future, there's people in Hollywood have been trying to warn us for a long time. You need to look at the movies They Live, Escape from LA, Escape from New York, and Barbed Wire, which is about the political breakup of the United States, half Nazi and half Japanese, I think, or communist anyway. But even if you manage to survive the physical debacle, people take for granted clothing, matches, shoes, socks, even plastic sheeting to make a tent, shovels, knives. As I said earlier, if you manage to kill a bear by bashing its head in with a giant rock, you still need a knife to cut through the fur to get at the meat. And you still need salt to cure the fur to make a garment out of it. And if you want to do that, you also have to have a knife to make lacings out of the skin of something, and a needle or bone to poke a hole to make lacings. An axe to chop wood to make fire, and for a while there will be matches, and then after that there will be a flint and steel to make fire, to stay warm. But for how long? The next 80 years? And then the addictions will cut in. No alcohol. Alcoholics will go nuts. Drug addicts will go nuts. Sugar addicts, pretty well all of us, will go nuts. Cigarette smokers. And then there is the biggest danger of all is your young daughter saying, "Daddy, I'm hungry," which will turn you into a raving, marauding beast. So, the elite class is always ready to dump the large group of us in favor of their own survival. There's a place in the north doesn't matter where, but like up where Norway is, Denmark, all those cold countries, where someone invaded, let's say, an island to take it over. The rich people ran into the castle and armed the peasants and said, go out there and stop these guys. And this was just when there was a change of quality of armor. And the peasants had the old armor. The new people came in and just cut all their tendons on the back of their legs. And they found them all piled in a mass grave. And then these invaders went to the people in the castle, and people in the castle said, we surrender. So all those people died for nothing. And the elites were able to stay alive anyway. And in face of this coming instinctive extinction level event, the elites are building underground bunkers and are prepared to leave us out here with no warning. That's unethical. It may be expedient, but the hope of mankind is that we would get to conquer and manage the earth. And if this is part of the problem here, to prepare for that and manage it. And this is why Elon Musk has been tasked with setting up a colony on Mars. And if you look at the Battlestar Galactica scenario, this has all happened before and will happen again. They keep saying that. So this time, are we able to rise above? Pun intended.